All right, so back to our agenda, which is probably right up at the top. Let's do item, Todd, 8.1. How about that?
Sorry, Kelly, did you say me?
You were scheduled for 10:30 this morning.
Yes. Yeah, sorry about that. I was, when the video comes on the live stream online, it starts obviously replaying what you guys have already said, and I heard my name in both sides. It was really awkward, but anyways, I apologize. So we're just doing the ASB update first, correct? Okay. All right, so I think we've had a pretty busy couple months, or last month anyways, sure feels like it. Lots of equipment quotes out and making some purchases. That's typically what happens in, that January and early February. As well, we've been pushing for the design and getting quotes in for our Emerson Park upgrade that we're using the grant for. Speaking of grants, we do apply for as many as we can in the work that we do, and we have those to report to in the wintertime, so I've been filling out some of those. Also, I think you guys remember we talked about the Brooks Fish and Game in the past and their tree planting project, so we've still continued to work with them. Just a little bit in the background on some of their work, so happy to report that seems to be moving forward, and it looks like they're gaining a lot of traction with other people wanting to partner as well, so that's good news. If you hadn't seen, our job ads are out, and we do have some resumes coming in. It was a little bit slow at the start, but we do have many really good ones right now, and we're excited about that. It's wonderful to meet some new people, and I think we have some great prospects for all of the jobs we have open. This is the time of year where we tend to try to book in most of our safety training, the certificates for the guys to do what they need to do. So I've been busy kind of doing that, some first aid, some chainsaw training. Joe's booking some overhead crane training, those kinds of things. There's lots of those little pieces of equipment that we use that you need to be trained on. So happy to get that done when we're not too busy. The nutrient management seminar that was held for 3 Mondays in January and just finished up on February the 7th. We had 500 registrants for that online seminar, so that was absolutely fantastic. Congrats to the County of Lethbridge they did the bulk share of the work on that, and we were just mostly responsible for doing a lot of advertising and pushing it. So 500 people, I don't think that's any small feat, especially when everybody was making a decision to sign up on their own. And the great news is, as being one of the partners, we're going to get those videos to share on our website. So if anybody didn't get a chance to get some of that learning, they'll be available on our website. Speaking of some great learning opportunities, we've got a wonderful 2 fellows coming in and talk about soil erosion and some different management tactics for southern Alberta. So that's happening on February 24th. That's confirmed with those 2 fellows. Rob Dunn, I'm sure some of you guys have heard him speak in the past, and Frank Larney, who is just recently, I think, retired as a soil scientist, and he's going to talk about a rotation that they did a study on in Vauxhall. So happy to hear those guys. We're also working with the province to try to bring in a few speakers and to have kind of a question and answer period on the Water Act and the wetland policy. So just a little bit about, to improve land and drain water and, maybe put tile in, those kinds of things. They all have a process, and we would just like everybody to know that process. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with County of Newell, except that sometimes the water that hits the ditches can have an impact that. So anyways, if you know anybody that's interested in those kinds of things, make sure they reach out to Jolene. I'm happy to announce, and I can't remember if I did already or not, but Gary and Sheila did accept our Calgary Stampede Farm Family nomination. So I've submitted all that paperwork, and that's good to go. The Gophers are out. I don't know if anybody's noticed. It's been kind of crazy hot for January, February, and Gophers are out like crazy. I'd like to have some great options for producers to use to remove gophers if they need to. We don't have any anymore. This March 4th would be the last time we were able to sell strychnine, but unfortunately we have none to sell. So we kind of did an order buy last year, and I think everybody should have enough for this year, and producers and landowners get to use it for one more year, so up until March 4th of 2023. Yeah, so that's gophers. And I guess last thing, we had a few soil erosion events kind of occurring in the last few weeks. So had the wonderful opportunity to talk to some great producers. And yeah, the conversations, I think 90% of them went really well. I did a little tour yesterday just to see how some guys were doing with what they had mentioned they were going to do. And there was a lot of busy work out there, tractors moving, manure spreaders. Yeah, it was positive to see, you know, land that had been moving that'll hopefully be stuck for the next wind event. So yeah, that's kind of how my last few days went anyways, was just making lots of phone calls and having some wonderful conversations.
Good, thanks, Todd. Are there any questions from that for Todd? All right, then we'll, yes, Holly does.
Sorry, Todd. So the February, it's 24th. Is that the one you were talking about?
That's
and that's
correct.
Online? And it's
That's
an online thing?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct. Yeah. Yeah, it's if you're familiar with what the what we sometimes call a lunch and learn when we're younger and in school, that's what we're kind of gearing for. So it's a 12 to 1 on the 24th is our soil erosion lunch and learn. You supply the lunch, we'll supply the learn.
Good deal. All right, Todd, we'll go on to 8.2.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so I guess I do have to apologize. I've always, you know, strived to be perfect, but I certainly am not. And it looks like I neglected to update a few numbers in our budget process last fall. Our capital budget, we always try to update those numbers before we go in, because our equipment is kind of, well, it ranges from, you know, 5 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old, and our software holds our values at what we purchased them at. So obviously when you replace a 15-year-old truck, you have to update that with new numbers. Long story short, I didn't update them appropriately, I guess. So we had two pieces of equipment that I must have neglected to do that. And that would be a 3/4 ton truck and a flat deck trailer. And so I guess I am here to ask for an additional almost $23,000 from our vehicles, machinery, and equipment fund to right that mistake, I guess.
Holly, question?
So I can assume that if it's a 15-year-old truck, it is probably quite due for replacement. I'm just wondering why the trailer is needing replacement. It's only 10 years old.
Yeah, it's a good question. We do try to keep a relatively good replacement cycle on a lot of our equipment, and even just as processes change in our programming. That's typically what triggers an update. I think if I remember right on this trailer, they're all tilt deck trailers, so flat deck, tilt deck trailers. And at one time we didn't put 2 units on a trailer to haul them to different locations, and now we do. So this specific trailer we use quite a bit for mowing in the hamlets. And so what we do now is we actually park a smaller mower on the front and a larger mower on the back. And we can't do that with the current model we have because there's about a foot, not enough of stationary space at the front. So just over the years, we see some improvements and like to keep our fleet as current as we can realistically, I guess.
Thanks, Todd. Any other questions or recommended action is here in the RFD? How do you wish to handle that? Dan?
I think we can make a motion to approve that increase in funding for those 2 items.
Any further comments, questions? All in favor of the motion? That is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you, Council.
Anything else today?
Not for me, I don't think so.
Okay, we'll slide over to Shannon then. Oh, Ray is here already too. Maybe, shall we take Ray? Yeah, okay. All right, Ray, please come forward. Yes, that would be great. And if you press the button, yeah, you remember the drill. Yep. It's the purple button. Oh, there you go. Oh. Ariana's coming to your aid. Oh. There. So, Ray, I'm sitting in for Reeve Dirksen, who is on the screen. He is present. Have you've met everybody around?
Yeah, we've been at a couple of meetings together now. They had
Good.
the joint one with EID, which was a good one. And then also, I believe almost everyone, if not everyone, was at the economic development workshop. So,
Wonderful.
oh, it seems like I was just here, but that would have been 4 years ago and 8 years ago and 12 years ago and a couple of times in between. But there are a few new faces here now.
Yeah. Well, welcome and go ahead.
No, thank you for the opportunity, and I'll keep it brief. So mainly I'm here to give you a little, especially for the new councillors, a summary on what SEWA is all about, and then maybe an update of where it's at, and then answer any questions. So how it started was Vulcan was going to develop a landfill about 15 years ago, and they decided that that was not a good solution for waste, so they started looking into waste energy and quite quickly found that there was nothing that worked on a small scale. And that's essentially still the case. There are new technologies showing up all the time, but none of them have really been proven on a large scale. And so they took their grant money and formed a group of municipalities working towards a regional waste energy plant. So as an alternative to landfills like the one here outside of Brooks for garbage, you would recycle as much as reasonably possible and then use the rest for fuel. And household garbage has about half the energy content of coal. So especially, you know, in our area, we get an awful lot of plastic from places like JBS. It's bloody plastic, it can't be, and bloody cardboard, so it can't be recycled. So they started the process, and one of the questions I hear all the time is, why is it taking too long, or so long? And the main reason is because it does. None of these projects have come off the board overnight. There's two operating in Canada, one in BC, that's in Abbotsford, that's been there for a number of years. And then they've just started one up in Durham, Ontario, a couple of years ago. And it's already too small. So, but it's not a new technology. There's probably close to 100 of them in the United States. So this is a mass burn. There's no preparation. You essentially dump the truck on the tipping floor, mix it, so you blend the fuel a little bit, and then it goes on the conveyor right into the burners. So about 100 in the States, and between Europe and Asia, probably thousands. And so it's a proven technology, and what we're hoping to accomplish is avoid building a long-term legacy of liability like a landfill is. You know, when you're done, it may look pretty, but all you really got is a nice coating of soil and some vegetation on top of a great big mound of garbage, waste. And municipal solid waste, I've been manager for the Landfill Authority for 26 years, or until a couple of weeks ago. And I've seen on an ongoing basis what goes in there, and it's everything you possibly imagine, and some things you can't imagine. But again, it would be much more useful as fuel than long-term environmental liability for our children and our children's children. So SEWA started, it's gone through a process, and it's dependent on a relatively small membership fee. So I think it started at 38 cents per capita, and it's up to just over 50 cents. And in our case, it's always been paid by Newell Regional Solid Waste. So on behalf of the members. So that money is not enough to carry this project forward. So it has gone the other reason it takes so long, or why it takes so long, is we were going from grant to grant and process to process. So right off the bat, is it feasible? Okay, so you find an engineer, you give him a whole bunch of money, he does a report. Okay, so it is feasible. So what's the next step on this? And so you apply for a grant, you get some more money, you get a governance model. So when you got 50 or 60 communities trying to run an operation together, you know, who's in charge? So Brownlee had to do that one. They don't work for free either. So you got to do another grant, and that takes more time, and then a detailed business plan, and then you don't know what you can do until you know what you got. So then you have to do a waste characterization. So then you have to pay somebody to go through bags of garbage and count the diapers and the cornflake boxes and everything else and come up with that. So that's been the process we've been going through since, well, for the last 12 years plus. And the intent originally was to be a publicly owned utility, to belong to the municipalities. And that would be the least cost option, plus it gives us control. Because along the way, there have been entities that have said, look, we, especially as the project progressed and looked like it could actually happen, they said, we'll pay for it, we'll build it, we'll design it, we'll run it for you, you just have to guarantee the waste. But we wanted to be in charge. And outside of the grants that we've gotten from study to study, we've had no substantial support from any level of government for the actual construction costs. And we're looking at about $450 million plus. So, which kind of surprised me because it is a huge green project, and one of the things that we had to pay for was when the NDP came in, and I thought, well, okay, finally here's a green party, they're going to jump on this. But we had to hire Pembina Institute to convince them it's a green technology. So there was more time, more money, and by that time the NDP had gone past their best buy date, and so now we're back to the PC. So we've gone through all these stages, and we had some money left. We figured we finally decided, okay, we're not going to be able to do this ourselves. We're going to have to go out into industry. And so another $55,000 to the engineers to put out a request for expressions of interest. Say, okay, this is what we've got. This is a real thing. Who wants to build it, design it, pay for it, operate it? And we would be clients. And we had 3 proposals. One was from Covanta, and they're the big players down in the US. One was Hitachi, Innova, and Acciona, so that's a joint group out of Asia or Europe. And the other one is Suez Canada, and they run Swan Hills. So these are serious proposals, and they will build it if we tell them, okay, we guarantee the waste, go ahead. So now we're at the point that these proposals have to be assessed. And at that point in time, when I look at it's another $70-some thousand, and I have some nasty words about some engineers at that point, because it went from proposal 75,000 to do 10 proposals, and there's only 3 proposals, so you'd think that would reduce the cost substantially, but apparently that's not how it works. So anyway, that's the next step, have the proposals assessed, pick who has the best proposal, and then go back to municipalities and say, this is what we got, this is what it's going to cost, are you in or are you out? And if they're in, if they'll guarantee the waste, and there's enough of us, then we move forward. And if there's not enough people that are prepared to commit, then it gets mothballed till somebody else picks up the torch. Now, for some members, it's pretty simple. So, like for Tabor, for example, or Coaldale, they don't have a landfill. Or Banff, for example. Banff right now is shipping their garbage to Camrose. So this, I think, is an 800-kilometer round trip for the garbage from the greenest place on the planet to where they throw it away. So for them, they're probably looking at a cost reduction by going through this proposal or being part of this. Now ourselves and Drumheller, we've got a landfill. So why would we pay the additional cost to this operator to put our garbage in this waste energy plant. And there's a number of reasons. One is, again, it eliminates the long-term liability and the risks associated with landfills and groundwater contamination and methane generation and all that. And also, landfills don't really have a lot of future. And on the one hand, they're a liability. On the other hand, they're an asset. So in our case, when you drive past the regional landfill, what you see, what is most prominent is the industrial waste, which is primarily soil and drilling mud, and which generates pretty good revenue. So if we can free up more landfill space for that kind of material, which can't be used for fuel, then that extends the life of the landfill as an asset and generates more revenue. And we had a record month in December. Our gross from industrial waste was $800,000. So there is value in landfills besides filling it with household garbage. Whereas if you fill it with household garbage and now you can't build another one or you've got no place to go, then what do you do? And also it represents some pretty good opportunities. We have New Regional Solid Waste did buy the quarter section adjacent to the north. And when they did the feasibility study, they looked at the value of the electricity it could generate, which I think it's 8 megawatts. And that's known, but they didn't give any value to things like steam. There's going to be lots of waste heat coming off of this, lots of it. We have been in communication with JBS. Their plant is close enough, and there is a route that we could get this steam to them if they want to use it and buy it from us. But also with this quarter section adjacent to the north, we could build an industrial park that uses some of the steam and possibly even electricity for industry of some sort. So there's some potential gains there. And I don't know if it got to you or not. There was another document there that I was hoping you would see that goes into the financial benefits to whoever gets this thing. You did get it? Okay, so it's not a small deal. We're kind of fortunate that we got it here. I never thought we would, because one of the earlier studies looked at, well, where's the best place to put this? And the ideal location would be by the grain elevators on the number one in by Cluny or Gleason, whichever one it is. But that's a non-starter. Proximity to Indigenous lands, it's not a consideration. It won't happen. So in our case, we have an existing landfill. It's already approved for waste, so you're going to eliminate a lot of opposition that you would, like Calgary could have one, but try to build something close to Calgary. Good luck. So it's acceptable location with the proper approvals and a similar land use already. Intersection of two main highways. Probably the only advantage it didn't, there were eight or 10 places wanted it. So it was in demand. The only advantage we don't have is we don't have a rail line adjacent to the property, but that's not a deal breaker. And these were some of the considerations that went into it when our site was chosen to be the site for the plant, if and when it is built. So that's sort of it in a big, ugly nutshell, but I'll answer any questions anybody might have.
Ray, you've been working on this all 12 years, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Any questions, Lynette?
I'm just curious, what do they do with the steam? Like, how could JBS use the steam?
They use it for heating water primarily. They use huge amounts of hot water for disinfecting and cleaning the facilities. And right now they're generating it with natural gas. And one kind of interesting, so where it is now, we've got to go through with this assessment expression of interests. We applied for a federal grant, we didn't get it. We're waiting on a provincial grant. And if we get it, it will give us money for that process, plus some to carry forward. I think it's $200,000. Otherwise, we had about $54,000 in the bank. And actually one of our members has some kind of a wind generating related business in the Pension Creek area. And he just donated $10,000 to the project. So, which was kind of a pleasant surprise. So at the executive level, I'm on the executive committee as well. The discussion was, well, do we go for broke and tell them to go ahead, or do we wait for this grant? If we do go for broke, then we risk losing the grant. And So where we left off was we were going to ask the entities that put forward proposals if they can be patient. We'll see how this grant comes out and then decide how to move forward from there. So I'm not coming out with my hat in my hand. No, if you've got 450 million kicking around that isn't doing anything, I'd have a suggestion.
I don't even have to look at my money man to answer that question. Was he? Okay. Council, any other? Yeah, Neil.
What can we do to help this?
Well, the county has been very helpful up till now. So when we've asked for letters of support and things from the municipalities and from some of the local politicians, the county was always front and center with that. And really, that's the main thing we've needed from the county up till now. You know, just, I guess, some hope or belief in the project so that it either goes forward to culmination or doesn't.
So you're here today to update us and
Yes, that's essentially it.
share where you're at, and you'll be back next month with good news that you got the grant money.
I sure hope so. So yeah, we've met with Michaela Frey and Will Martin, but neither one of them is in a position to pony up what we really need. So that's, and if it is surprising we haven't had the support. We thought we were this close about 6 or 7 years ago. P3 Canada was looking at the project and they were talking about putting in a couple $100 million. But right around that time, they got involved in some kind of scandal in Quebec and they got shut down, and that was the end of it. So, you know, it was right there and then it was gone.
So Ray, is this pulling garbage from that map, that say what map that we have there showing all the different
That's a
counties?
membership map. There a few have come on and a few have got off from that map, but essentially it covers the area that that are actual members. And part of the discussion is, okay, so these people were members and left, or these people have never been members. How do we respond if the project goes ahead and they want to join? Like you don't want to dissuade them because the project is dependent upon having enough waste. But on the other hand, they shouldn't achieve the same level of benefit right off the bat as the people that have been in it for the longer term.
So is this going to pull garbage from some of the other landfills? For instance, Redcliffe.
Yes.
They pull, that's a major moneymaker for the town, for that.
Well, they think it is. They have a very good site. They have very good geology. But, you know, like in our case here, the cost that goes out as a per capita requisition to the members is less than $40 per head for the landfill, and used as a landfill, and then you get reimbursed for your transfer costs from that. It doesn't cost $40. And essentially in Alberta, we're really good at making garbage. So it's about just over 1 ton per person per year. $40 a ton won't run a landfill. You know, our actual landfill operating costs just for the landfill are like $60,000 a month. So but it doesn't seem like where it's costing much because you don't have to pay every time you drive across the scale like you would in Calgary or Lethbridge or places where they are paying $100 a ton plus when you cross the scale. And with all the costs involved, $100 a ton is pretty close to what it costs to operate a municipal landfill. But in our case, because of the industrial waste, the landfill authority has been able to make up the difference.
So is there any money that are, so if we pay, for instance, in City of Brooks, if they pay a garbage fee, is there any taxes that are added on to that for projects, for future projects like this, like an environmental surcharge or anything like that?
Well, there is a second fee. There is a recycling requisition as well at the same time as the landfill requisition, and I think it's around $8 per capita. And New Regional Solid Waste is a very strong proponent of recycling. If you come to landfill, you're seeing we're doing metal, we're doing tires, we're doing concrete, we're doing wood, We're doing household hazardous waste. We're doing electronics. So about a third of the stuff that comes, and we're doing mattresses. Heaven help us all, because you wouldn't believe how many mattresses come out of this area. So we start out about 30,000 tons, and we wound up bearing around 20,000 tons.
Is that $8 per capita per year?
Yes. And when I was saying how we support it, so we support it at the landfill through our activities, and everything that we keep out of the cell saves airspace, and which saves money and saves management. And also, though, we do support recycling throughout the county. We have the recycling depots at all the municipalities and most of the transfer stations. And we also finance the shortfall annual recycling association, which is about $300,000 a year. So that comes from the landfill authority, which is quite a bit more than $8 per capita. And then we also have the composting program, which is probably about $40,000 a year.
It's big business. Any more questions?
Yeah, when you say it's a big business, there is a reason why organized crime has always, it isn't just for getting rid of the bodies, that's all.
I have one other question, Ray. So if we look at the recycling fee, realistically, what do we need to pay per capita in order to fund something like this? Like, would it be double? Would it be $16 per person? What
Well,
kind
for
of
the
numbers
waste
are we-
energy plant, well, based on 300,000 tons a year, which is what it was designed for, because when you go from 100,000 to 200,000, there's a big drop in per ton cost, and then from 200,000 to 300,000, there's another big drop in per ton cost. So it's designed for 300,000 tons a year, and the base fee for that waste is projected to be around $57 a ton. Now, there would be some transfer costs included in that as well. So, and some of the existing costs would stay, but that still should be well under the $100 a ton, which it actually does cost.
Sounds like a committee you might want to pick up next fall. Anyway, thank you so much for the information and staying on top of this big project. 12 years is quite a commitment, and I wish you all the success in bringing this to our area, because it's huge economic development for our area.
Well, thank you for your interest and your support. And if at any time anybody has any questions or concerns relating to this, or recycling or waste management for that matter, if I've got a little bit of background in that, then feel free to give me a call.
There is no doubt there. Thank you, Ray. Okay, Shannon, thank you for your patience. You're not collecting taxes today, you're doing something different.
Yeah, the opposite this time.
Right.
So a little background. So the government of Alberta launched 2 programs as a response to the oil and gas downturn. These programs allow us to apply for an education property tax credit equal to the education levies that we were unable to collect from delinquent oil and gas companies. So I'm here today. I'm requesting a motion to write off the tax arrears as listed on my attachment. And I also need the motion to put the application to the government. I have to submit it with my forms.
Appreciate that Coles Notes version. You've all got the information in your packages. And Shannon's following the MGA come certain timelines. She has to bring it to council and do this process. So how would you like to handle this? Holly?
Just one quick question before I make the motion. Are all those companies gone? Like they're gone bankrupt?
Yeah, the majority of them, I phone calls and chase them, and they're just not there anymore. But that being said, if somehow they show up and are able to pay, we can take that money still and reverse everything. So we won't say no to money if they want to pay.
I'm not sure what the motion is, but I want to make the motion.
Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, guys, online. So Councillor Holly Johnson moves that Council cancel the 2015 to 2021 property taxes in arrears in the amount of $398,830.10 from the following tax rolls. Any other comments regarding, you have a question, Lynette? Go ahead.
I was just curious, like some of these ones were let go, like they've been from 2015. Like, do we always wait 7 years to write things off, or how does that usually work?
Sometimes it's just wishful thinking things will show up, and so I'm just doing cleanup this year, and not a lot of wishful thinking is left on these, so.
And just to back that up, there is timelines in the MGA, so she's probably following the MGA. Matt has a comment.
Yeah, I hate writing off taxes, right? And this has been such a challenge administratively over the years, trying to get some teeth that we can sink into collection, right? So we've had conversations with civil enforcement agencies. We've explored the idea of, well, can we go in and steal their computers and sell their, like, we've beat this dead horse. Shannon calls the linear guys shortly after the tax deadline. We've tried to harass. We will look, and this is part of our year-end procedure to determine, what kind of bad debts are we sitting on, because the auditors want to, all right, yeah, you've got $1 million in your tax receivable GL. How much of that are you actually going to collect? So, we'll go look at the AER's list of debtors. We'll look at who's in receivership, and a lot of this is like a slow burn, right? So some of these guys might enter receivership years ago, and it takes a number of years to actually dispose of the assets, and at the end of the trail, there's actually no money left for the municipalities, sorry. So we write it off, but we do, if any of these guys do come through with money, we'll chase them. One of the positive developments that you may have heard about is the new bill that does let municipalities put a special lien on linear taxes. So that is a process that we'll be looking at in 2022, getting that all sorted out. I don't think it's, maybe it just received proclamation, but there's details on how we get that built into our process so that we're not here writing off taxes. I mean, if you're a residential taxpayer and you don't pay your tax bills, we take your house and we sell it. Same thing with farmland. It's a little more difficult to seize a gas pipeline, so.
Great.
Just wondering, how much of the tax credit would we get back on that money?
So my application is asking for $64,352.80 back. So hopefully all of it, or all of the 64.
Okay, all in favor of the motion to write off these properties? And that is carried. Thank you, Shannon. Sorry, you are item what on our agenda, just to help?
9.1?
9.1, thank you. Road closure.
Okay, so I have to apologize for not providing the correct RFD initially. I think that you should have the correct one now, but I'll go over it so that just in case you didn't have a chance to have a look. So this is a road closure that's in conjunction with the NRCB application for the Newell Colony. This is in Division 9, just north of, not just north, 16 kilometers north of Bizano, so up there in that dry land. So all parcels on all sides of the road allowance are in the Agriculture General District. and they are all owned by the same landowner. So as it was stated in the NRCB application, they would like to construct a new chicken barn, and then they would like to fence off the road allowance to allow for grazing of these additional chickens and to follow the free range protocol, I guess, as set by the industry. As per the road closure policy, it states that it would be ideal if the road was closed from property line to property line. There is a county maintained road that comes off of, that goes south into the colony. So my suggestion is to close the road from the end of that county maintained road down to the south property line. So that does include more area than the free range chickens area, but it does include an area where they have been farming potatoes and doing some other things. So I think that it makes sense.
When I look at the map, it doesn't look like it was really a valid road before because it was right through the colony. So why were they not already paying to use that road allowance and it was leased by them?
Well, and that's a really good point, and maybe something that we, that our department should revisit with council. This road closure, there was a project prior to me coming to the county where staff was looking for roads that were being used by different farmers in the area or different people, and then they were approached to have the roads closed and leased or closed and sold in some instances. We haven't had the staff time to continue with that project, but is definitely something that could be on the docket again. So this wasn't ever flagged because we didn't really, there was no reason that brought our attention to this until now. But that is a project that we could look at in the future as soon as we have some staff time available to start that again. Because it would be a county-wide endeavor, I think.
Yeah, there are plenty of these properties, including pivots over our road allowance. So it's a huge can to open, but it is one that we'll work towards, I'm sure.
I wonder if it was done per area, because they certainly went through in Scandia and there were a lot of people coming to county chambers, or at least a number that I know that have been here, including ourselves, having to lease and close road allowances because of pivots. So
Lane has the answer for that.
Yes, that was indeed the case. We did start off in the southwest corner of the county and then started moving in the north, towards the north area. But that was the first area that was focused on, and then we just ran out of time and resources to really continue with it.
Mm-hmm.
How far did you get?
Well, it was pretty much limited to that corner of Division 4. And we were just getting started.
Yeah. Maria?
Mm-hmm. And just a little bit of additional information. We have started working with the EID really within the last year, where when they get applications for pivots, that applicant has to come meet us at the county and discuss the road allowances and any encroachment. Because the EID, I think, has realized that, you know, it is county land, it's not privately owned land. So there was some issues with infrastructure being built right on road allowances. So now we're working together to make sure that everyone is aware of whose land is whose and the proper steps to take.
Lynette?
I would be ready to make that motion to approve and the approval to proceed with the application as the road closure and lease.
And lease, okay. And that is option, not that it matters, but one. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? All in favor of Lynette's motion? That is carried. Okay, Maria. On to the extension discussion from last meeting. Not a lot new there, is there?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There is nothing new to report for this, unfortunately. I did contact the applicant's representative on three different occasions. They got back to me twice saying we're working on it, and I did tell them that this was the day I needed information, and I didn't receive anything. So nothing. I have nothing new to report. Unfortunately, I guess the decision is now with council.
Holly?
I'd like to make the motion that we refuse to grant the extension.
Okay, can your first motion be to lift it from the table?
Okay, I make the motion to lift it from the table, and
all in favor of that motion? Thank you. Now go ahead.
I'd like to make the motion that we do not grant the extension due to the applicant not providing any further information.
Okay, thank you. Any other conversation on the motion? Dan?
What are the ramifications of that motion passing? What's going to happen to the subdivision? Is it already subdivided? Will it have to go back to being one parcel? Someone getting kicked out of the house? What happens when we say yes to this?
Essentially, nothing changes. Nothing has been changed at land titles. When the original subdivision is approved, then the applicant needs to satisfy all the conditions prior to the county doing a final endorsement, and so that final endorsement never happened. So it just becomes done, I guess. Nothing changes. The applicant then is able to reapply. So then they'll submit another application with the application fee, and then they'll have to start the process again.
Dan?
And did that dugout ever get abandoned, filled in for the pivot or not? Do we know that?
No, it's still sitting there. Amanda and I went out and looked at that parcel, and there's nothing wrong with the subdivision. It's kind of a natural. So I agree with withdrawing or putting a timeline on them, but if they could start over again, do it right. What's the difference?
Okay. Any other concerns or comments? I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Maria, for following up for us. We are moving along. We have no more visitors, I don't think, other than Mark, and Mark has left us. Oh, Lane. Hello. Where are we going to, Lane? Thank you. 9-6.
So council will recall that during the organizational meeting, there's appointments that are made to a number of committees and agencies. Some of those provide for members of council and members at large to serve. One of them, that there was an opening that remained after the organizational meeting in October, was the Palliser Economic Partnership. Now, Councillor Holly Johnston was appointed as council's representative. The second position on that agency, though, is reserved for someone representing the business community in the County of Newell. We have been advertising for applications. None have been received other than the one that has been submitted by the executive director for the Brookson District Chamber of Commerce. And the information that is before you would indicate that on the basis of the Articles of Incorporation for the Palliser Economic Partnership, it would be acceptable for council to proceed with that appointment if you so choose to do that. The only other alternative, I guess, is to continue with advertising and inviting the application from other individuals that are directly involved with the business community.
Okay, so we have an application. This position was only filled one time in my 8 years. That person, so she chose not to go anymore. This one I have a little bit of questions about around her position with the chamber, in that would we be paying her mileage and her expenses, or would Chamber of Commerce be covering them?
It's my understanding that the compensation for board members comes out of the PEP budget.
Oh, she would understand that she's representing the County of Newell and not the Chamber of Commerce. That's where it gets murky for me.
Correct, but she still would be a board member for PEP.
Yes.
And the board, or the budget for PEP, should provide for compensation for their board members.
Lynette?
Is she a business owner in the county at all, or she's just part of the chamber?
It's the latter. She's part of the chamber organization.
Holly?
Two things. If PEP reimburses, I'm not aware of that.
No, PEP doesn't. We do. County of Newell.
Okay, all right, that's what I thought. Secondly, I reached out to Quentin on this one because Quentin told me the city of Brooks was looking at getting involved again. He'd been talking to Lisa Tiffin, and I meant to reach out to them, and I forgot again this morning. I haven't heard back from him, so I'm just wondering if this might be a wait to see if they are coming online to a more natural fit there. I don't know.
Well, it's another fit. Like as members, they also can provide board members. So this is our opportunity as County of Newell to send. So that's where it's murky for me. It's Brooks Chamber of Commerce representing the County of Newell on the PEP board. Is that, can you make it any simpler than that?
That would be it, but keep in mind that the Brooks Chamber of Commerce is Brooks and District.
Correct.
It expands out and represents business activity and business owners throughout the county.
Good point. Good point. But we have no other interest, so how do you wish? Neil?
Is it possible that I'd feel a lot more comfortable with any one of our members filling that seat as a business owner than the Chamber of Commerce, because I don't think they're aware of our individual needs and where we want to go. So if we're going to have influence in that board, I would just soon appoint a council member.
So you're suggesting sending another council member for that second vote?
Or somebody that the council agrees to send. I have no background on who this person is, and the chamber is, I know for sure, probably not as aligned with what we're after as far as economic development goes as one of our own members would be.
Okay. Holly?
We've only had one meeting. The next meeting is next week, but it's quite common to have two council members there as opposed to a council and a business. It seems to me from my initial meeting.
Say that again. It's quite common.
It seems to be more common to have two people from a council as opposed to a council and a business from my first meeting. But it was a Zoom one where you're trying to put people together. But certainly it seems to be leaning more towards government elected officials as opposed to business owners and what I have seen, but I'm limited.
Okay. So do we have a feeling on this? Neil?
Seeing as Dan says he has no committees to be on, I would nominate Dan to take that position instead of the chamber.
Okay. We'll word it a little differently with your permission, but.
Yeah, whatever you want.
Matt?
Well, I'm just curious if I'm reading the article of the association appropriately. In the RFD, it's Article 4. Each member is entitled to appoint 2 representatives. 1 representative shall be from the business community of the member, and 1 shall be from the municipality itself. So I'm not sure if this is an option to appoint an additional councillor. I mean, maybe you can appoint Dan as a member from the business community in the county, right?
If Dan's accepting, he is a plumber and he has his own business.
I don't think I'd want to be on that as a member of the business community.
Lane?
I know that the second appointment has certainly been discussed in the past, and at one point, one of our economic development staff had actually filled that position as the second appointment on behalf of the county. So I think that there's some flexibility,
Okay.
as long as they're involved in representing the business community of the member.
Okay. So the motion is to send Dan Short on behalf of the County of Newell to the PEP meetings. Yeah.
I don't think Dan accepted that nomination.
Oh, did he not? Oh.
Yeah. I'd accept that nomination, I guess, yeah, for sure, because I may have the most committees, but I have also the least amount of committees. So if that makes any sense to you.
No, it really didn't.
None of my committees meet regularly whatsoever. So
Thank you for that clarification. So you do accept the nomination? Okay. All in favor of the motion? All right, that is carried. And you'll send a thank you letter to Margaret for her interest. Thank you. Terry, should we do your item? What number is your item on the agenda? You are 10-3. Not 10-4, but 10-3.
Thank you. It's been a while. I got to make sure I figure out these buttons are working right.
Yeah, we haven't seen you for a while.
A couple times a year.
Just to let you know that Reeve Dirksen and Adina are online. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Anyway, why I'm here this afternoon is to bring forward an RFD for purchasing for motor graders. So I guess back when we approved the interim budget, we did have it in budget to replace 4 motor graders for this year. We proposed that any of our graders that had more than 10,000 hours or pretty close to 10 years in range to replace them. Right now we're looking at 4 of them that are about 9, well, the youngest one's 9 years to replace, and the oldest one is 11, and they all have well over 10,000 hours. So gonna give you a little bit of discussion, a little bit of history on how we've been looking at graders. It is a pretty large investment and probably one of our best tools that we have for our ratepayers to keep our roads, try to keep our roads smooth. So currently we operate with 7. We have been going with 8 grader operators for quite a while, but this year, I think Mark already mentioned in a couple of his meetings that we're going to go with 7 graders this year. Give it a try. If we don't try it, we don't know if it'll work or not. So what it kind of little bit involves is it's about a 13% decrease in our service that we provide. Typically, we can get through our rotations in about 20 days, so it's going to take an extra 3 days to get through our rotations. Typically, our rotations are about a month, so it's going to take about a month and 3 days or something like that. That's working days, right? Typically, the grader operators will do about 5.5 rotations a year. So that is our goal, try to get over the roads at least 5.5 times a year. Last year, we did 6 and a bit. As you all know, it's very dry out. So we did quite a bit more dry. Our grading season got extended out quite a bit. Right now, I have 6 graders out. We do not grade typically in the winter time because it causes a lot of grief, but you guys all know it's very dry out there, so we're out there grading again. So typically each motor grader, the last 5-6 years, we put about 1,000 hours a year on them. That's just grading, right? So if there's heavy snow, we'll definitely put on more than that. So going back a while, so I think prior to 2014, our practice was to replace 2 motor graders a year. At that time, we ran a fleet of 10 grader operators. So what it kind of worked kind of cool was that we replaced 2 every year, so the life on our graders is about 5 years. So we'd use them for 5 years and then trade them off and buy new ones and move on. So worked good for many years. One of the big reasons we did it back then, well, it was kind of an economic advantage. These graders, they were 14 inches, they were the bigger graders. We would pay right around $300,000 for them, use them for 5 years, and we turn around and get like $270,000 back for them. So it was good. So basically, we worked out for the 5 years, the capital cost on those graders was like around $5,000 a year. Really good deal. The biggest thing back then why it was like that is because they were bigger graders, construction graders, so there's a good heavy market for these people. They go back to the construction area, and we get really good discounts, right? So it worked good for years and years. Probably about 2014, about in the same period there, we decided to try and use a smaller grader, so one size smaller, so it's about 5,000 pounds less. What it did is it gave us 2 savings immediately. So that grader is a smaller grader, so it was about $40,000 less to purchase it. The second thing was we seen immediately was a decrease in fuel consumption. So we put our grader operators out there. Fuel consumption dropped right away at least 100 liters a day. So over a course of the year, it was quite a substantial savings, right? Little bit of tweaking with the guys there, or the staff, and we soon determined we could get the same results grading with the smaller machine. So that's where we're sitting at now with these smaller graders, and right now we run 8 of them. So during that time too, we also went from 10 operators down to 8 operators, and that's how we've been running. About the same time, 2014, we started having these smaller graders looking at selling them. And all of a sudden, after 5 years, we were there again, still paying around that $300,000 for them. After 5 years, we were looking at getting like $150,000 for them, or less, or more. So immediately, it went from like a $5,000 a year capital cost. All of a sudden, it went down to it was costing us $30,000. So at that time, we looked at it closely. The maintenance costs didn't change much on these graders. We look after them really well. So a couple things, if your maintenance costs go up, you have to trade them off because they're less reliable. So maintenance costs didn't really change on us. And it was weird. It's like you buy a new car, you pull them off the lot, the used value. What we found is for the next 5 years, these graders went from $150,000 to resell to, I think I can get around $100,000 right now. So the first year, 5 years, they dropped $150,000, and then all of a sudden they're dropping $50,000. So at that time, we kind of went year to year. Let's see how it works. We're getting to the point where we're running them for 10 years now. So they're still work all right, but what we're afraid of, and we are seeing it now, is we're starting to, when you get a diesel engine, you get close to that 10,000 hours on them, we do start getting major component wear out. So we've done a couple of engines. I know we've done 1 engine and 1 transmission. On these graders, depending on there, an engine is $50,000 to $75,000. And then a transmission, I think on either machine, is around $50,000. You get hoses that are leaking, and electrical does funny stuff and stuff like that too. So at that point last summer, we definitely decided that it's probably a good time to trade up on these machines and get some more reliable equipment out there in the field. So that's kind of where we're sitting at right now. So I think I went through that pretty good on there for you guys. So the 4 machines that we're looking at are, I have them listed in there. So they all, like I mentioned, they all have, actually a lot of them have between 10,000 and 11,000 hours on them. So there's the 4 machines there. I explained 3 John Deeres and a Cat. The John Deeres are at 877, so they're very similar to the Cat in size, to the 160. So yeah, those are the ones that we're looking at. Sourcing replacements. So a little bit of history here too. Typically when we were doing tenders for graders, we would take, what we did in the past, it was really easy. We took out specifications from a Cat grader and put them in a big long document and list everything out that we wanted. And then we send it out there. Well, in this industry, in Alberta, well, probably most of Western Canada, there's only 2 graders out there that you can purchase or service area industry, which is the Cat and the John Deere. So we'd send out the Cat specs. John Deere would come in and says, yeah, we can do it, kind of do it, yes, do it. And it was a little bit goofy. It was tough to do. So where we're sitting at now is a wonderful there's a program out there. It's done through the RMA. Right now they've changed it to Canoe Canada, and I don't know if you guys have had any history a little bit on this there too, but it's a government sourcing where government organizations and anything that's government, volunteer, anything like that, we can go to this organization and we can purchase equipment. Wow, there's a huge list. There's all kinds of goods. We can do tires, paper products. You can purchase it through them, and they will give us government discounts. Typically, government discounts for equipment is around 15 to 20%. So what they do is they allow us as an organization to not have to go out and tender everything all out. What they do is they kind of do a pre-tender or pre-qualify any equipment manufacturers, for example, for graders, pre-qualify them that they will guarantee us government rates. So there's basically down to 3 steps. We advertise an Alberta Purchasing Connection that we are going to advertise for graders through Canoe, right? So we do that. I basically turn around and I talk to, for me, there's just the 2 machines that I'm looking at. So I have like a CAT dealer, a CAT salesman, corporate or government salesman, and a John Deere, same thing for them. I talk to them. This is what we are looking for graders. These are the specifications. Kind of nice because there's more and more of us that are doing it. And I think I kind of mentioned it to Matt a little bit too. What they're doing is more and more counties are coming onto this. What it's allowing for these guys, 2 dealers, to do is they can actually do more purchasing of graders, and we're getting so close to all our graders having the same specifications throughout the whole province, and they're just trying to work their way into Saskatchewan. It allows them to go to the big dealers like CAT and saying, Alberta's going to need 15 or 20 CAT graders. John Deere, so Alberta's going to need 15 or 20 CAT graders. They're all the same. We get really, really, really good pricing. And so I do that. I got the prices back. They're exactly what we want. And then we summarize them in the sheets here below so you guys can kind of see what the prices are. The CAT is a 150/15. They kind of changed their numbers on it. They used to be a 160 and they kind of moved it down to 150. Another thing with everybody's kind of aware when you buy equipment with graders, every year they make it a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, and a little bit more horsepower. So since the last time we bought a grader about 6 years ago, the 160s around 200 horsepower and had a certain weight. Right now, because they made them better over the last 5 years, they actually changed it to be a 150. So the 150 is essentially the same size as the graders we're using now. And John Deere did the same thing too. So they had their 877s. They made them the same thing happened there too. So basically their 177 GPs, the same size as the John Deere graders we have there too. So we didn't want to upsize or downsize the graders. They're the same size. And those are the 2 prices that I got for essentially the same weight and horsepower machines we have right now. So the 2 manufacturers within Canada, for the 150, the unit price is $512,100 for a total of $2,048,400. And then Brandt with the 770, their price was $500,034,300 for 1 machine, or for a total of $2,137,200. So I kind of mentioned it. All we're really looking for is a machine that has a certain weight class. We know we have to move to a tier 4. I think it's a final stage. So all these graders are running DF in it, which I think they got the bugs out of it, so it's kind of cool. The graders will have a 16-foot moldboard, which is our standard for grading our roads. We also make sure that they have a snow wing on them for winter time, so we drop down and can plow our roads. And then another thing we added on about 5-6 years ago, most of you have been around, you'll see we used to have those big V plows on our our graders. So the smaller graders, they didn't work that nice on them. So what we did is we actually went to a UV plow, so it's smaller, so it's a plow that'll actually go like a V plow or a cup or left or right, work really, really well. We use those V plows, they go on our machines in the fall, and we use them all winter for snow removal because they're just nice. Those big old V plows, I think in 11 years here, maybe used them a half a dozen times. They're just big, awkward, and they're not overly that handy. So a couple of good things. We kind of got to get standardized and works good. So yeah, we've gone through quite a bit of stuff here. So I guess I have the 2 options there, and open the floor up for some questions.
And go ahead.
Just like anytime you're shopping, sometimes you're going to pay more for a different product. Do you think the extra cost for a Brandt would make it worth it, or is the finning quite acceptable?
They're essentially the same machine. They are. They are. So, you know, when I was putting budget together, I got prices for these machines, and that's why I came at 550,000. I got prices back in the summertime. I suspected their prices should have been around $534 for the machines or better. For some reason, and when I talked to the salesman, I think with economic conditions and shortages and everything the price for that machine for $512,000 is a fantastic price. I mean, and of course the brand guy called me like, what's going on? Because they're always juggling right in that neighborhood of that 530 because they're delivering machines constantly. So the cat machine's a beautiful machine. Well, they're both good machines, right? So that is a really good price for what we're getting there. And
So
we've had both machines out with staff. They've used them both. We've had both machines out. They tried them all. Yeah, they're both good machines.
So there's two options in our package, and the first one is recommending the thinning product, which would be the cat model. And that's option number one. Or option number two is just to not buy any graders. And so, Council, Adina, Arno, how do you feel about Adina? Go ahead. You're still muted, Adina. Oh, maybe Todd's muted you? I don't know.
Sorry.
There you go. There you
Get
go.
confused between its age, laptop, and I was trying to push it on the screen. Anyway, I'd like to make a motion that we purchase 4 motor graders from Finning for $2,048,000.
Okay, thank you. Any further? Lynette has a question.
I just had a couple questions. You're talking about needing to replace engines. Have any of the 4 that you're getting rid of had the engines replaced? Like, what's the resale going to be? Like, what are we getting back from these 4 when you get rid of them?
I think 204s had an engine on it. Typically what happens with them, so if we do send it to auction sale and stuff like that, we'll usually put a note in there that this machine has had a new engine in it. So we will get better money for it. You usually get your money back on it too, because that's somebody's buying a machine like that. They'll ask if it's had new engines, what kind of works. They'll ask for service records and stuff like that too. So if there's an engine in there, I won't say we'll get the full 50,000 back, but we definitely won't get a discount for it. So I'm really curious to see what the market is for them right now, because the next thing is, and everybody's very well of, there's a shortage, like a pretty good shortage of everything. So even knowing for these graders now, I just talked to him and he just said Q4 delivery. And I was hoping sooner. So it's almost rolls in that we can maybe bring another 2 in, because we might not see them for another year and a half. So.
Okay.
That was another one of my questions.
When was it coming? Okay.
And that's all in price. That includes the millboard, snow wing, UV plow. Okay.
Yeah. And just to note on there, Mark pointed out there, he didn't prove this last one in there. I think if you go with the numbers up there, it's 2 million. The option one should be 2,048,400. I miss numbers once in a while. You guys look on there. Yeah, I'm missing $400 there. I apologize. He hits me not hard enough sometimes.
Holly?
I guess it's a Matt question. So when we sell them, do we have it in the budget that we expect a certain amount back, or is that just kind of no one knows?
Well, it is a no one knows, but I think we put a conservative like $50,000 proceeds that we budget. So we always budget low, and it typically comes in higher. But I guess my question would have been for Terry too, similar to Councillor Kopp, is are we buying enough of these things, right? So we're already March, we see we've got a decent price on these things. We've got 2 more graders coming in 2023. Do we save Terry a trip to council and order 6? Not that I want you to spend more money, but it might make some sense given, the just-in-time environment has kind of evaporated in the world, right? So I guess that would be a question for Terry. Are those other 2 that are set for replacement in 2023. Can you justify buying another 2 to council?
Well, we're already to the point where these graders here too, by the time they show up, they're going to be, even I go one up, even the ones out there that we're replacing there, they kind of making me a little bit nervous. It's coming in again with more repairs on it. The next 2, one's got about, 7,700 hours next. The other one's got 8,700 hours. There's one definitely be well over the 10,000 hours again, so we'll be there too. And for that, the 2 are really close. They're close. You'll get good money for them on resale anyway, so if we have to.
So the short answer to that question was?
Yes, please.
That's what I was hearing, but it wasn't very clear. Okay, Holly has a question.
Matt, question. So how does this work in the budget when we just go over $1 million in equipment and like now?
Yeah, so you'll be good for those first 4, that 2.2 million's in budget. If you were to entertain another 2, you would approve the additional spending, and you're within your rights as council. That's now an authorized purchase. And you would indicate the funding source comes from your vehicles, machinery, and equipment fund, which that's sitting around $13 million last time I looked. And we do continually save into that and cycle out of that. So any of these, if there's an opportunity to buy at a deal, we want to be able to buy, right? So we never want to have to sit on our hands. That reserve has worked really well. We save 100% of the annual amortization charge, and we also save the proceeds from disposal, right? So the proceeds kind of give you a little inflation factor, building that up, and we've maintained that pretty well since I think it was 2012. That was one of the first policies that I put into place, was that restricted surplus, because previous conversations around the budget table were, well, we'd like to see an even budget line. And it's like, well, I get that, but you can accomplish that without having to buy 2 trucks every year, right? Is kind of how the pattern used to be. Now you buy the truck when you need it. We exhaust the graders 10 years out. We've got the money when it's time to replace them. I think it's a better model. And with these prices coming in a little bit better than what Terry was crystal balling, and Terry's not the best at crystal balling anyways, let's be honest, but I look at where supply chains are and just the disruption. If you can get another 2, you might as well get another 2. You've got the money, so something to consider.
Greg has a question.
So
thank you, Matt.
We can get those other 2 for the 512, get 2 more.
Yeah.
And I do agree that the supply chain is we're going to see a few years here where we're going to have some shortages, I'm sure. So, my thought is to do that.
Lynette has a question. Thanks. Great.
Using canoe procurement, could we even get the prices better if you're doing 6? Like, this is bulk, right?
Okay.
I can ask, but I think he gave me price for machine. I'll ask, but I did mention it to him that, I don't know. And I just asked quickly. So for example, on a grader, if you were a private contractor, and I talked to the fitting guy, so if you were a private contractor, went out to purchase one of these graders, a private contractor would be paying right around $100,000 more than we do. Mm-hmm. So we get a pretty hefty discount. Part of the discount, and this is probably more about, other than we took these machines for 10 years now. So the next machines, I put the much warranty as I could on them. So I think I'm at 7 years, 8 years and 7,500 hours on it. As soon as I stretch that warranty out there, I'm telling them that we're keeping these graders that much longer. They actually knocked off another certain percentage on there. What they really like it, a couple things. They like counties buying graders off, and we get a good discount. They get them back, they resell them, and they can make money again. So they give us, just because we're holding the machine longer, it's longer warranty, they give us discounts on them. They get the 20% discount. I can ask. I doubt it, but I will ask because that's the type of person I am. Sorry.
Adina, how do you feel about your motion after the conversation?
I would like to amend my motion. Yeah, I think we should purchase 6 and adjust the budget to reflect that.
Okay. Any other conversation? Oh, Mark.
Well, just furthermore to Canoe, when you ask them for pricing, as an approved vendor through Canoe, they have to guarantee that pricing across the board. So this isn't pricing select to the County of Newell. This is pricing that if Wheatland County were to buy the same machine with the same specs, they should be getting the same price. And yeah, that the volume purchasing is already built into that factor of Canoe. And, you know, our MA is no longer Alberta. They had Saskatchewan and I think Manitoba, but now they're across Canada. That's why they changed the name to Canoe. You guys would have heard that at the fall convention. And that's just the whole thing. So they're not looking at the 6 coming from Newell. They're looking at the like 80 or 100 machines coming through all of the municipalities, and that's how these vendors are providing their pricing. It's no different if we were to go and buy road signs, and if it's an approved vendor, and because we wanted 200 of these signs, that they offer us a lower price, they have to offer that lower price to all municipalities.
Okay.
If there's any shady business aside from that, they're probably going to get punted out of the approved vendor list.
Holly, you prompted another question.
This is slightly different, but I know on the farm we're seeing real problems getting tires already. So how is our stockpile of tires?
Well, if we buy 6 new machines, that's going to give us a number of years with tires, and Terry's already got some stockpiled in the shop. So that always becomes a contentious issue too, because they have tire sales, and like these are real fire sales. They're awesome deals that they put out there. So the just in time doesn't always warrant either, because the right price gets you to buy. And, you know, sometimes I have trouble with it too, that, so there's like 10 tires sitting in the shop. When are we going to get around to using them? Well, when they've had a discount of over $2,000 on a tire or the set of tires, it's like, well, it's kind of hard to pass it up because you don't want to pay full price.
Where we're getting stuck with is right now, and I'll be honest with you, is our drive tires on our big trucks, and there is a shortage on them. And we like a particular brand because they're awesome for gravel. No. So I know on the last couple of trucks there we're getting stuck with it. And the drive tires, they're a big heavy duty tire. They're like $1,500 a pop or something like that. But we can't get the ones that we prefer because we can get a lot of kilometers out of them. But you know, it's going to affect us in one way. We try to do our best. And like Mark says, with graders, I think we bought a bunch of grader tires in November because we heard it was coming. But it's oil, tires, lots of consumables. It's a little bit spooky. So
Go back on topic here and talk about graders. Do you have another question? I thought you're ready for the question. All right, let's vote on Adina's motion to purchase 6 graders. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Okay, thank you, Terry.
did you want a value for that? No, it's okay. Thank you.
No. Fax it to us. All right, Mark. Okay. We need 5 minutes to move about and take a break. Okay? 5 minutes is requested. Mark, welcome. Officially welcome.
Good afternoon, Council. January's report. What are the highlights? Officers issued 11 warnings, 0 tickets, and conducted 10 investigations over the last month. Continue fulfilling partner hourly commitments. The priorities of each of those partners is driven by their CAOs, councils, and EID board members and whatnot. We still have 1 outstanding CPO agreement to get resolved, which I know we're very, very near here. And the Provincial Justice Transformation Initiative,
This is the Administrative Penalty Information System. You've probably heard a lot of it. There's a lot of information been circulated. There's been a lot of feedback from the public to the provincial government on this initiative. And I believe the last notification was that they're on a 90-day break to collect feedback from the public because you no longer really get a day in court to try to have your ticket thrown out. You negotiate that through new means under the new system, and the public is not receiving that well because they're basically saying you're guilty, period. And that's not how the system is set up to work. You're innocent until proven guilty, and if you need to go in and defend yourself, that's how you do it. So I believe they're trying to work through resolution as to how they can bring more information and bring things to light as to what the new process will be for those that want to contend any tickets and charges. With that, I also attended super user training for that program. However, we did not have access at that time as a super user. The super user is not a great title to have because all it affords me is the ability to go in and correct things that officers need corrected on things that they've processed that need to be changed. So I wish they would just leave that with those people, but that's not how it works. So they're going to try to run another session, but I think that's all been postponed as well. So we'll wait and see when things are going to proceed with this. And this has been 18 months in the making that they've really been working on this and trying to get enforcement agencies up to speed, making sure you got the right printer and this and that and everything else for your officers to print from. We had taken initiative, a lead throughout the province with this, along with a few others. And it was a little printer that basically gave you a receipt that you would get from a grocery store. And depending how much you're getting charged, you could have quite the ticker tape rollout, right? Then they said, no, you all have to have 8.5 by 11 printers. And the feedback from us was, well, these are the things, like, you got to have them in a vehicle. How do you keep them working in winter? And so now they're trying to modify their formats and you know, you try to take the lead, but sometimes you're better off just staying status quo until they say you have to do it. But we try to be leaders, and in a way, we're in a hold phase right now with that. So, fleet services, information there on the Enterprise Fleet Management Program. The proceeds on the resales of our vehicles came back at approximately $4,000 plus per unit. That is excellent return on the program offerings that Enterprise presented to former council on, and we've continued into, I think we're in our third year now on that. The last of the units that was being replaced at this time just left our yard here earlier this morning, so we will wait to see what kind of proceeds that one brings on its own. The rest of these were sold in a package offer, so whether there's damage or not, they offered the $4,000 plus per unit and bought the whole works of them. So that's positive news on that. Grader operators, I really don't want to jinx my department, but I hope for the region we get snow here in the end of February and March, because what we're seeing right now is not going well for us. And on the flip side, we haven't had to spend any money on snow removal services hardly. We've gone out and knocked down a few drifts where some of the drifting has happened with the light accumulations that we've received, but really nothing significant. That means that team has really been out there working on the vegetation management control, getting those trees cleared out of road allowances and things like that that are creating snow drifting and other sightline issues and stuff for motorists. So excellent progress on that. Truck drivers, yeah, because we haven't been out plowing a whole lot of snow and responding to too many snow events on paved roads. They too are making excellent progress on the stockpile program. What else we got here? Annual equipment tendering and stuff. You heard from Terry. We've got other things in process to be replaced as well that we're working on. We filled our vacancy on the maintenance operator that started on February 1st. Water, wastewater, and engineering, the Kinbrook Connection Pathway and the county partnership, or county pathway, the RFP for professional services out on that. We're aware that there are landscape architects, there are professional engineering services, there are a multitude of professionals out there that are capable of working with the committee on designing this thing and getting those pathways into place. That closes on February 22nd. There will be an evaluation period, and I hope to be in a position to present to council, I believe it's on March 10th, for award with that. Long-range aggregate supply, so we have a few gravel pits, I should say. We are working on identifying new resources that will be intelligence for the county to keep to themselves as we go through the process. We are going to be moving into an actual disturbance phase where we're going to want to excavate select locations to see what we find, so intrusive testing. And based on that, to do that, we'll have agreements in place with landowners that if we find what we're looking for, how we move forward with that landowner and what can be offered. But council will be brought into that as we go through it. So CNWP Phase 2, my apologies, I missed that discussion this morning, so I will get updated as things progress with staff. And bridge file replacement work, bridge file 76696 is complete, and 76697 will commence here when the pipe arrives, and I think it might be closed here. And 72744 has been removed. The road is under closure, and they're working on that. Other business, our staff continue running through lean management training. I was supposed to be heading to Lake Louise here following this meeting to attend a CAO/supervisor meeting for municipal enforcement purposes. That's been canceled. It'll be turned to virtual for tomorrow morning for 3 hours instead. And is due to somebody came down with an illness and can't present. So why drive 8 hours, right? And I think that's really it. We got some permit statistics at the end of the report. This is just really for council's information to see how things are trending across the years, how much oil and gas activity we have. This municipal load report includes everything from a rig move to a doghouse move to a light plant move to heavy construction equipment being moved down the road. So you can see that the start of 22 at 208 permits. We're definitely above the 2021 statistics where COVID was still at play, but we are well below the 340 permits in 2019 and 347 permits in 2017. And I throw a 3 and 5 year average in there for you as well. There's lots of lines on that graph, but it gives you an idea of how we're comparing with the activity in our region. I guess if there's any questions of council, I would.
Just a question about the Kinbrook, the path you're talking about. When you talk about engineering, are you looking at the whole distance from basically the county building to Kinbrook Island? And does that make sense if the path doesn't get the funding? Are we then wasting money on that portion? We don't know if it's going to go ahead or not.
So where we're at with that, when we wrote the RFP, we've identified that the 2.4 kilometers from the county office to Township Road 18-2 must be done in this year's construction season. We have grant funding on that that's available till December 31st, 2022. The rest of it is subject to the support and funding from the public to help fund that other 10 kilometers. So when we get into that with the engineers, there will be, or with the professionals, there will be a priority set on the first 2.4 kilometers to get that done because the funding is there, and then we will be working on everything thereafter. The thought behind combining the two projects is the greater the volume you have in your construction tenders, the lower the actual price be because people bid lower on larger volumes, particularly if it's your gravels, your asphalts, or whatever. Now we've left this open to the professionals to guide us through the process of how things should be done, what their best practices are, what we're looking at. You're connecting a urban municipality in essence to a provincial park that can have any kind of users on it. We're looking for them to provide some of those solutions as to what the best fit is, whether it's the surface type of the pathway, whether it's how many nodes, how many trash cans, how many benches, how many whatever should be along it, if there should be any of that at all. So we're really relying on what they have, and it'll be interesting to see what the proposals provide for us. We do know that there's a lot of interest in this project.
Any other questions for Mark? Adina's like, nope, not me. Nope. A motion to approve, and that includes Cole's report as well, right? Amanda, I saw your hand up. Thank you. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Thank you, Mark. Okay. So Ariana, let's talk about our conference coming up, convention, 9.7. Can we, yeah, go ahead.
Right, yeah, this was brought forward from the last meeting, which is good because they actually posted details about the convention.
Yeah.
So scheduled for March 14th to 16, in person only at the Edmonton Convention Center. I have booked a hotel room for each of you at the Westin, which is nearby. Check-in is March 14th and then out on the 16th. There are 2 elected officials education program courses available, and they're doing it over 2 days, so 2 half days. There are council's role in service delivery and council's role in strategic planning. So if you want to attend either one of those, we'll just add another day to your hotel. And then the meetings with ministers, if you want to meet with ministers, we can talk about that too. So I guess I just need to know if you're attending the convention, if you need changes to your hotel reservation, if you want to attend one of those training programs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anybody who's not planning to attend the March convention? Okay, so the only one that we need to check with then, Ariana, is Ellen. Okay. So that works for the rooming. Is there anybody that wants to attend one of these training sessions? Dan?
I wouldn't mind going to one of them, and I tried to pick which one I'd go to, but both of them look pretty good. Has anyone attended either one of these before and has any idea of, well, I guess you're the only one here that would have. Have you ever attended one of these? Any insight as to which one would be better or if either one would be worth it?
I'm sure they're both, they go through a lot of attendees, so I would say either one. We're going into strategic planning. That is logical. We're doing that in April. If that's service delivery, I don't know what they would be concentrating on there other than, you know, staying in our lane maybe and what our role as counselor is. But we've had that initial training through the lawyer, right? So.
Yeah, I forgot about the strategic planning coming up here, so that's the decision maker for me. I'd like to go to that one.
Okay. Anybody else?
Strategic planning.
Well, being that we're all new and strategic planning is coming up in April, maybe we should rethink this and all of us go to it.
It's it makes a tougher commitment. It's already 2.5 days of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, but by all means, if that's the wishes of the council, we're there. It's just means an extra sleepover. Actually, 2 extra sleepovers. No, it starts at 1 extra sleepover. Okay. Reeve Dirksen, Adina, do you have any thoughts on this for yourself personally?
Well, maybe, yeah, in light of the fact that we are doing strategic planning and it is new, I mean, partly I'm curious that with regard to how dynamic these are, and I guess the only way to find that out is to go to one. So, I'd probably agree to that too, to go to pick one of those up while we're up there already anyway. And probably the strategic planning one is the more pertinent for me, I think.
Okay, and Adina, what are your thoughts?
I don't want to get left out, so. No, I agree. Strategic planning is a good idea to go to.
Okay, Lynette.
I would just need an extra motion, I guess, because it was said that we could do 2 training things, and I already went to Muni 101, and I'm signed up to do the financial planning. It's an online one that goes for 4 weeks, coming up here right away. So that would be extra training for me, but I'm not opposed to doing it, so.
Yeah, no, there's no limit on training really. If you're, I mean, you have to get approval ahead of time. I hear what you're saying. Yeah, thank you. The education, I think there are about 12 of these EOEPs, different topics. Am I right, Ariana?
Yeah, and they cycle through them throughout the years. Like usually they do 1 or 2 at a convention,
Yeah.
and then they have online options as well. I think yours is 4 sessions. Yeah.
And then at RMA, after you've had either 7 or 8 of the courses, you receive a certificate or a pin or something. They do celebrate your willingness to get trained up. So yeah, certificate. All right, so maybe get in touch with Ariana individually as you decide about the extra day. How does that sound? Because it is just a month away, so she needs to register us. How are we with that conversation, Ariana? Are you good?
I think that's good. The registration deadline for the convention is the 25th, but those courses fill up pretty quickly, so you want to get on that right away.
Okay.
Put me down for the strategic planning as well then. This is Arno.
Yep, thank you, Arno. All right, let's slip down to 9.8. Are there any requests for functions of council? Dan has one?
Back to that one, were there any ministers that we wanted to try to meet with?
Yeah, we
Minister of Health, maybe?
skimmed over that. Yes. I don't know how to do this right. Yeah, Minister of Health would be good. Arno, would you be okay with that?
Yes, that sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Ariana.
Typically, they ask for a list of topics.
Okay. Let's.
Doctor shortages in Bassano?
Let's say Bassano Health Center. Okay.
Yep.
Any other
Health Center.
ministers? Any other ministers? I'll tell you later. Yeah. Okay. Agriculture, being for the veterinarian conversation. That's a province-wide. It's already been tagged at RMA by that resolution, right?
Was last time, because I didn't go, it was transportation and, was it ag?
Municipal affairs.
Okay,
Yeah.
so health is new and, okay.
Yeah. Health is new. And one minister is fine. I mean, Arno, do you have any wish list?
No, I think that's okay. I can't think of anything that else that we, where we have, anything burning that isn't general in other parts of the province probably as well. So.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for bringing me back to that, Dan. Request for a function of council, 9.8. Holly?
We had got a notice about the RMA 101. There were 3 sessions, but 2 have already passed. The last one is on RMA Priority Issues webinar on February 18th from 2 to 3, which I would like to take part in.
Say it again. I missed your voice is just not.
I will try to talk louder because I sure can when my kids are doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, it is the RMA 101 webinars.
Yes.
2 of them have already passed, but there is 1 remaining, which is happening on February 18th, and it's priority issues in the RMA. I'd like to take part in that one.
Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion? Neil? All in favor of that motion that Holly attends? Thank you. That's carried. Lynette?
I'm not sure if this one was already made a motion or not, but I went to the Alberta Provincial Police Transition Study on the 27th of January, so it is on my payment thing, but I wasn't sure if we had specified that
We
one or
did
not.
make a motion at the last meeting that all councillors be encouraged to attend Alberta Police discussions. So, Reeve Dirksen, am I correct about that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I understood. Yep, that's right. Thank you.
No other functions of council that we know of. Let's go down to post-agenda items. Item number 11. I had requested this item, policing, and I'm putting Matt on the spot. If I do, I'm sorry, but would you give us a history? It's a recent history. We started paying last year on policing, and then now we're getting into the operational part. And I just wanted us to be able to have a conversation about where the county is, where council is on this topic. And we may not come to it today. That's fine. I just want you to have some history, and I'll start the history lesson by saying until 2020, we never paid for policing as a county. In history, we have never paid for RCMP policing until 2020. So then I'll turn it to Matt, and he can give you numbers and go from there.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. So through the chair, yeah, it's curious that County of Newell residents have to pay policing costs because they're such law-abiding citizens, right? So we really can't be drawing too much on the police budget. Yeah, 2020 was our first year. It was around $214,000 touch that we transferred to the province. And this number isn't exact. These were the estimates. We came in just a little bit under. For 2021, we're going to be in it for, we haven't been billed yet, but the estimate's around $393,000. This year, 2022, you're looking at $536,000. And you're looking at me, and if we presented any budget lines that increased by this rate year over year, you'd be looking at me and my management team sideways, right? 2023, you're going to be on the hook for around $787,000. $787,000. And then 2024, when they've fully broke you in, you'll be on the hook for around $859,000. So in a period of five years, you go from zero to nearly $1 million.
In 5 years.
In 5 years. Oh, the rate per year is based on a fun calculation that I won't bore you with, but it takes into account assessment, population, a crime severity index. There's a few other modifiers in there. Yeah, year one, you're on the hook for 10%, year two, 15, year three, 20, year four, 30% of policing costs. It's a big touch, right? Like, I mean, we show a lot of discipline, I think, in terms of our overall operating budget year over year. This is a huge touch for a service area that you do not control. We've asked or suggested that they treat this more like a requisition instead of a operating line transfer. So we want this to show up on our financial statements in the same spot that transfers to the seniors foundation and transfers to the school authority shows up in, because it looks like you just over 5 years increased your operating expenses by nearly $1 million, but you actually don't control any service level related to that, right?
Holly.
Could I get some background as to the rationale behind it? Is it just that police costs are going up? Is there something, what?
No, So there is a movement by the provincial government to move away from RCMP contract to Alberta Police Patrol or policing. And you have to go to these courses to get this information, Holly. It's, and good luck getting it. And that's just my experience. You ask pointed questions and you get circle answers. Lynette has been to one. Maybe she could speak to it.
It felt like every question that was asked was basically, well, in the report, it said this, right? Like that was, there was really no extra answers. So if you read the report, you got everything that I got, even though I sat there for 3.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So has anyone, because that's the provincial one, right, that you went to? Then there's the RMA one, which most of us listen to, and then you've got one from the RCMP as well, right? So there's
the
three,
union, yeah.
The union.
Mm-hmm.
I registered and forgot all about it.
Use your mic so the others can hear you.
We were in council the day that, was it?
That was the RMA one, and the police services have one too, but I missed that one. I registered and forgot.
Are they having more of those? Does anyone?
Yeah, there's more. Go on the website and check it out on both Alberta and RCMP.
I think March 3rd is the RCMP one, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Arno, do you have anything to add to this circle?
I mean, I think this has been a very, well, to begin with, it's probably been communicated very poorly by the provincial government in terms of what their intentions are. I recall the discussion at the RMA convention when the ministers were up there, including Madhu, and not necessarily from his comments, but from some of the other comments, just questions about are we getting what we're paying for, or are we paying for a lot more than we're actually getting? Because maybe that was mentioned here already, but I seem to recall something like 30% of the time within the RCMP schedule is actually allocated to the country, to the Canada-wide RCMP. Whether that's the case or not, I'm not able to judge that at this point. But my guess, I mean, it's been heavily politicized. I'm having a hard time seeing through this because I got to think that there's a little more logic to it coming from the provincial government than we're actually hearing. But if it's there, it hasn't been well communicated. So I'm not sure. I appreciate you bringing it up. I unfortunately am not adding any light to it right now, but I think we will need to get some clarity on this at some point.
Yeah, we'll get there. I just, at some point, we'll have to come to an agreement here around the table on what our stand is on this. And in the meantime, it's incumbent upon each of us to get the information wherever and bring it back. Holly?
Can I take, from what you're saying, Kelly, am I correct in thinking that your thought is the government is putting these costs in because they're going to be happening with provincial police force? And is that what you're alluding to, that that's what's going on here?
Yeah, I'm saying the snowball is formed and it's rolling down the hill. Who collects money from municipalities without a plan in place, right? So anyway, it's coming. I fully expect we will have little to nothing to say about it. What bothers me is the mass public knows very little to nothing about it at this point. Okay, I'll leave it at that for now. We'll quickly go take a look at the pavement register 12.1. Are there any questions? Yes.
Just a really
Holly?
quick question for Matt. So I see that the costs, like for November and December for NRSC, are quite high, but it's everything. So am I understanding that the money we pay for everything and everyone pays into here to pay the costs, or how does that work?
Yeah, so NRSC will bill us for management of our systems, both the rural and the hamlets. Hamlets have your water and sewer, rural just the water. We pay them for delivery of the water as well. So it's like 1 million invoices, right? That comes from NRSC. And in the description, if you see a number prefacing, that's the volume of water. So yeah, we include those costs that go out to NRSC as one of our budget lines. Well, more than one budget line, but the fees we collect from our residents go to settle those liabilities with NRSC.
Any other questions from the register? Motion to accept for information? Lynette moves. All in favor of that motion? That is carried. Okay. We have some other information items, the minibus system, the RCMP statistics, and of course our correspondence on Phase 2 water project. At this point, Ariana, am I good to go in camera? Yeah, okay. So I'd entertain a motion to go in camera. Amanda? All in favor? Okay, we're in camera.